was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need you to.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. This is our evening edition as we join you in prime time. We come with facts, truth, and power, hard-hitting news, and we're going to explain things and go in depth in things that others may have forgotten, missed, or just outright didn't think was relevant or pertinent to you. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. Now let's get right in it. Politics and news. So before the show started, we had comments in the comment section talking about different things from Iran. Will the U.S. attack Iran before the Iranian Chinese meeting? And I was saying that for that, I don't know. But what I do know is that an attack is coming. If you go back to when this show first started, before all of the outbreak of war between Iran and Israel, before the outbreak of hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel, before the overthrow of the democratically elected president of Syria, Bashar Assad, before the Ukrainian conflict, I have been the one telling you constantly that America is going to attack Persia. Persia is Iran. They see Iran as one of the greatest threats to American hegemony. Because and you see a lot of pundits now are recognizing that, and they're talking about how Iran is in the underbelly of China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and it also it borders on what they call the Middle East, but it's West Asia. All of that is really West Asia, and its geoposition is very, very strategic and relevant to the security or the insecurity of Eurasia, Africa, and even to Europe. But before we walk down that street, we got to get an understanding. We don't build the house from the roof down. We build it from the foundation up, okay? So we got to understand where we are. We got to calculate time. Time is a measurement of motion from point to point, okay? Now, I want to go to something so that you can get a clear understanding, a concise understanding of what is actually taking place and why America is becoming so reckless in her policies. Why Trump is acting so gung-ho-ish, with all of this bravado. As I told you when I first started this show years ago, America is running out of time. The American empire is running out of time. I was reading an article on Press TV. They had something about in the near future, that there will be three poles of power. And in this article, they pointed out America, they pointed out China, and they pointed out Russia, and they pointed out these three as the three poles of power globally, and each one will have their own a sphere of influence and power. And then I read something else in another article from a Western press that says something similar to that. Okay. And my conversation to them is this. And if you see smoke, I have my sage burning. So I like to get the negative energy out. So if you see smoke, I don't smoke, I don't drink, never smoke, never drank, none of that. And so don't even think that's a cigarette or a cigar. But what we have to do is look at this, okay? I want you to look at this seriously. America, in her position as a global hegemon, we cannot erase inconvenient facts or inconvenient truths because they don't align with our perception or our policies. We have to address those things. You know, ignoring cancer won't rid yourself of the cancer. Ignoring AIDS won't mean that you don't have AIDS, right? So the best way to tackle the problem that you have is head on. Get a firm diagnosis of what you have and all of the things at your disposal that could cure or stave off certain death, okay? So my question, common sense question to you all is this. When we look at history, there's a saying that history best rewards those who research it, right? Show me when an empire that became a global empire in the sense of the word, you know, now when we say global, we really mean global, but I'm talking about back then they were saying global empire, and the globe, according to them, was their region or whatever. But show me in the annals of history where a country attained that position with unrivaled power, unrivaled influence, unrivaled wealth, decadence, arrogance, immorality. And in the midst of their fall, they were able to reconstitute themselves and remain a great pole of power. Show me that one time in history. I'm asking you this because people continue to say that America will be one of the three pillars or poles of polarity or power globally. Well, let us look at common sense for a minute, because we're going to walk down this rabbit hole in a minute, and then we're going to address some things about Greenland, about Venezuela, about all of this stuff, and show you how it's interconnected with the silver prices, with the inflation at the stores, with the decline of the dollar. We're going to do all of that, okay? Just walk with me. Be patient with me, all right? So look, let us agree on something. Is America not the largest debtor nation in the history of the world? Not just the largest debtor nation now. I'm talking about in the history of the world. Yes. According to all of the statistics, according to all of the pundits, according to all of the prognosticators, the financial heads, everybody, America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And her debt is so great that you can pile $100 bills on top of itself and go to the moon and back and still have something left over. So now, that's the main point here. Now let's look at other fissures in the dam. Once the envy of the world, no longer the envy of the world in education. China and multiple nations are now graduating engineers and astronomers and scientists at greater rates than the American empire and her allies. We understand that. Now, there's been a huge degradation and decline in American education because, as I often say to you all, education is one of the key pillars that America has missed on her ride when she talks about a national security. There can be no security of a nation if the nation is dumbed down, if the nation is ignorant, if the nation doesn't know its head from its tail. There can be no security of a nation when you cannot formulate what gender you are, what is right and what is wrong, what is moral and immoral, what is ethical and unethical. When all of these things lapse, collapse, and decline in an educational system that is supposed to prepare you to grow, to progress, and to thrive in multiple environments. When this educational system starts its rapid deceleration or decline, that fissure is one of the greatest signs of an imperial collapse or a social collapse, because you see degradation everywhere. There's no respect for life, no respect for property, no respect for privacy, right? There's none of that. People will kill you over a pair of shoes. They'll kill you if you look at them wrong. They'll kill you if they misread you, if they mishear you. They'll rape you. They'll rob you. They're doing all of this stuff. They'll traffic you. This is the sign of imperial rot. Now we have economics, we have ethics, we have morality, we have education. All of that is in the doldrums, right? Doldrums, excuse me, right? We have that, right? Now, let us look at her political system. Her political system is a pay for hire. This is why the Congress people and the politicians are always beholden to big corporations, because these are the people who fund their campaigns, and they need these funds to continue to be in their office to attain influence and wealth. That is pay for hire, right? That is the epitome of corruption and illegitimacy, because it's the corporations that make the policy. They make the policy, they pass it to the people that they help get elected, and then they push it. Look at Trump himself. He has a cabinet of 14 billionaires. You tell me the last time 14 billionaires gave a care about the masses of the people, their plight of poverty, or whether to pay a bill, or whether to sanction a company that was ripping off the people. As a matter of fact, if you go and look, Trump has been pardoning people who have been accused and convicted of gross violations of ethics, morality, and financial crimes. Go look at it. He wasn't the only one. It was Biden too, but I'm just letting you know. I'm putting the candle down, the incense down a little bit. But what I'm saying is the system itself is showing its cracks. It's showing its corruption. It's showing that it is inherently, to the very core, corrupt and unsound. Now, in construction, if you have an unsound foundation, what happens? If you continue to build on that, what happens? At one point, sooner or later, the house or the structure is condemned. If not, the whole thing implodes upon its occupants, right? I'm asking. Because here we're not going to deal with feelings. We're not going to deal with beliefs. We're going to deal with reality. You're going to get a good dose of reality. People don't use their common sense. They use common sense until it applies to what they hold dear to them. And then common sense be damned. They throw it out the window. So we look at the lapse in education, the lapse in ethics, the lapse in morality, the corruption of the system. We look at the injustice. America comprises 5% of the population of the planet Earth, yet has 25 to 30% of the prison population. How in the hell can you go around talking about human rights when there's no right for humans in your own land? Make that make sense. You always talking about democracy, freedom, and human rights, yet you lock up a quarter of the people. You have more people in prison than China, and you talk about communism. Make it make sense. How is it that you're the land of the free, yet you are the one who are convicting? You know how you get such high conviction rates? Because the state attorney, along with the so-called legally provided public defender and the judges, all rub elbows together, all have lunch with each other, all have this program for profit, prison for profit program, where they use people, they convict people that don't have the means to defend themselves. That's corruption. That's greed. That's insanity. And you want to point the finger at China, Russia, Iran, the Sahel nations, South Africa, the Latin American nations. You want to label Maduro a dictator, and here it is, Macron in France doesn't even have 9% approval rating, yet you don't seem to want to overthrow him. Look at Starmer. Starmer doesn't even have 13% of England. Haven't you gone into England and kidnapped him? Maduro won, and it was legitimized by the Carter Center. But he's a dictator, a tyrant, and a thug. See, when they use these terms, these are code words to try to put it into the minds of the people. They want the people inculcated with the madness that they're spewing so that they can then double back and justify sanctions, assassinations, color attempts, color revolution attempts. And if that's not enough, then they use the military. What does that sound like? Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? Have you ever read the book? I advise all of you to read the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It's sitting right on my bookshelf, right on the bookshelf. Go read it. He tells you what the empire, he was an economic hitman. He tells you the ins and out of how they work. But here's the thing. America is not the America of 20 years ago. The European Union, England, they're not the nations of 20 years ago. And the other nations are not those so-called third world nations of years ago. If you go to Africa for yourself, you'll see big metropolises, mega cities that outstrip the U.S. in the West. That's why they were so mad with Gaddafi. Because the UN, go Google it, go see it. The UN said that under Gaddafi, that Libya was the most prosperous nation on the Mediterranean. Now, let us look at what was said by the UN. The most prosperous nation on the Mediterranean. Aren't European nations on the Mediterranean too? This was a no-no. An African nation that was heads and shoulders above the garden, that was a no-no. That was a no-no. Nobody talks about this, but we're going to connect all these dots and we're going to show you something. Okay, I see all the comments. Let me go to the comments real quick, and because I don't want to lose my position. Shout out to Fei Lu. Shout out to Grizzly, Martin 1, Dave H, 5947, Michael. I can't. This thing is jumping. My guy Michael, you know. Shout out to you. Shout out to JWCL. Man, this thing is jumping so fast. Shout out to Vera in the building. William Gilchrist in the building. Let me see. Let me see if this thing can stop jumping. I'm gonna get back to some of you guys. The thing is jumping at the moment. And it is jumping fast too. I'm sorry. So, but listen, I want to go to a couple definitions, okay? You guys bear with me a second, because I like to prove what I say, and I want you to, you can put this in Google search engine, all right? The words armed robbery definition. Armed, past tense of armed robbery definition. And the AI overview says this: armed robbery is a serious felony involving taking property from someone by force, intimidation, or threat while armed with a dangerous or deadly weapon or something perceived as one, making it an aggravated form of theft with severe legal penalties. It elevates simple robbery by adding the element of a weapon, increasing the risk of physical harm and resulting in harsher sentences, often including long prison terms. Now, why did I say that to you guys? What did Donald Trump do in Venezuela? He parked the Armada, a naval and Air Force Armada close to Venezuela. He illegally interdicted ships coming and going out of Venezuelan territorial waters and those that were in international waters, right? So he used weapons after threatening the nations to succumb to his threats. He then goes in illegally and do what? Use his military or his armed forces to illegally seize the property of another, right? I'm asking, because we're looking at the definition, the United States definition of what armed robbery is. Not what Rashid says, but the United States definition of what armed robbery is. Okay? Let's read, in case you missed it, let's read it one more time. Armed robbery is a serious felony involving taking property from someone by force, intimidation, or threat while armed with a dangerous or deadly weapon or something perceived as one, making it an aggravated form of theft with severe legal penalties. It elevates simple robbery by adding the element of a weapon, increasing the risk of physical harm and resulting in harsher sentences, often including long prison terms. What is he doing with Greenland right now? He's threatening them, right? He was threatening them with the use of force, either one way or the other, he says, right? Is that not armed robbery? According to the definition. Did he not just do that in Venezuela? What is he doing with Iran? We'll kill the Ayatollah. We'll do this, right? Now, if Iran said that about the U.S. president, they would take that as an act of war. What is he doing now with Haiti? Right? As a matter of fact, what did he say about Haiti? Let me see if I can pull this up real quick off of AP. U.S. government warns it will take action if Haitian politicians destabilize the country. Bizarro world. If Haitian politicians destabilize the country, a country that has already been destabilized by the CIA, the MI6, the French intelligence, Israeli Mossad, and all that, so that they can ship dope from east to west and west to east. Not only have they done that to ship dope back and forth and to launder money, but they're also siphoning off resources. They have ships that are planning to dig for oil and gas and the rich minerals there. See, all of this is connected. What did Trump go to Venezuela for? Tell me. A lot of people say for the oil. True. That's true. But that's not it. That's not everything. Some people say, well, for the minerals, the rare earths. That's true too. Okay, that's an underlining thing. But when we're doing this, we're gonna show you all of the things that are going on and some of the things that's going over the head of other people. Okay, so now, as I talk to you all right, I'm going to pull up something on my screen, and I may pull it up on this screen. Okay, a little bit by a little bit. All right, when we talk about Venezuela. All right, listen to this right here, Venezuela. And this is something that runs through. This is a seam that runs through all of the overthrows from Libya to Yemen to Somalia to Ukraine to Armenia to Venezuela to Bolivia, the threats of Mexico, all of this upwards to Greenland. And okay, it's a seam that everybody continues to miss, even though the rare earths are one of the things, right? And I'm gonna prove it because I'm gonna pull up the policy papers, okay? So I'm not just gonna be talking just to be talking. I'm gonna prove to you what I'm saying. So while everybody is talking about the oil, which is the thing that they want, and everybody is talking about the untapped rare earths, which is a thing that they want and they need, nobody is talking about the main thing that the policy papers of the 1990s stated that America and other nations may have to go to war for. Water. Let me say that again. Water. Okay, now let's look at the AI overview. According to the AI overview, it says, while no single large water deposit discovery was reported recently, Venezuela is inherently water-rich with the massive Orinoco River system and the Lake Maracaibo. But recent news focused on water contamination. That's what the West wanted you to believe, that this is what's going on, right? It says in the Maracaibo, I can't pronounce that word, basin, impacting these resources alongside illegal mining, causing pollution and depletion of vital minerals like rare earths, leading to severe environmental and social issues, with some reporting highlighting water pollution from oil spills and neglected infrastructure. Now, that's a Western Give me on that now. I'm gonna pull up some of this stuff for you guys on the screen in a second. Just give me a second, okay? Because something triggered when they went in there. I kept saying, there had to be somebody close to him, and I started thinking about the vice president, and then I started thinking about other people, because my thing was this: I wanted to watch before I said anything. What do they say in construction, and when you're doing like renovation work? Measure twice, cut once, right? So it was crazy that they were talking about doing deals with a president. They were saying, we won't bow to empire. We want the legitimate president back, yet they were making no demands or stipulations to bring him back. And yet they were making deals. They were meeting with U.S. Embassies while the U.S. has their president and first lady in handcuffs, locked in jail, in prison. And at the same time, you welcome the CIA and talk about we can do business, and the president of your nation, the first lady of your nation, is locked away. Could it be, and I'm just throwing something out here, when they first put in the paper that the vice president fired the head of the guards, the presidential guards, could it be? And I'm just saying this. I want to provoke thought. This doesn't have to be right here, but I just want to provoke thought. Could it be that maybe they needed a fall guy? Because who would know where the president was better than the vice president or the so-called leadership group? None of them have tried their best to get the president back, huh? So they in England, I was reading what is it, the paper up in there? I forget. They were saying, and I don't want to misquote the paper. I forget the name of one of the papers, but they were talking about that the vice president made deals with, and this could be propaganda, but at the same time, if that's where it's leading, you got to go with where the facts go until something proves otherwise. Who gave the order to deactivate the air defense systems? Who gave all of this other information? Who made these deals? Notice that Trump never tried to overthrow the people who were so-called loyal to Maduro. And there was a water deal on the table. Let me shut up now. Not only were they talking, why are they talking about this in the news? They talked about that Trump might try to seize the rare earths. They talked about the gold. They talked about the oil, the gas, but nobody talked about the water. Isn't that why they bombed Libya? Because Muammar Gaddafi, people say, well, Muammar Gaddafi was killed because he was trying to make an analog to the US dollar. That was one of them. But that wasn't one of the main reasons. I mean, that was one of the main reasons, but that wasn't the only reason why. Yes, he wanted the United States of Africa, but he had a corporation from Canada helping to build aqueducts, because what they had a survey and they said Libya had some of the largest underground water reserves on the planet. And what Gaddafi plan was, after he had he sat down with his advisors, and then they had these presentations by environmentalists. They were going to turn the desert area of Africa into agriculture. This is why they employed Western bids on the aqueducts. Do you know the day that the aqueducts were finished, the pipelines that were going to run these things, the day that it was finished, the Canadian company reported to NATO, and that's when the bombing started. I believe it was that day or the very next day. And one of the first things they hit were the plants that the aqueducts piping went through. They destroyed those plants. Did you know that? Did you know that Syria was Israel was getting a large portion of its water from Syrian water, what was recognized as Syrian water? You know that? And without that water, Israel couldn't survive. And do you know that after the removal of Assad, Israel took full ownership of it? You know that? In Armenia, they've done a discovery of huge water reserves, underground water reserves found. Why do you think Armenia just came into play? Armenia is not rich in natural resources and all of this other stuff. They may have a little bit, but they're not on the scale of a Nigeria or Zimbabwe or something. Why do you think so? Now, let me pull up something for you guys while we're talking on this, okay? Let me see if I have it here for you guys. Okay, here's a definition I'm going to pull up on the screen for you. All right, and then we're going to go to a policy paper in just a minute. Let me see. All right, share screen, resource wars. Okay, Google, share. This should be on the screen right now. And I'm looking at another monitor to make sure that it's up on the screen. All right. So you see that? You see something highlighted right there? Okay, I'm glad you do. According to to Google, what are resource wars? Resource wars are violent conflicts that are largely driven by competition for control over vital or valuable minerals, such as oil, water, land, timber, animals or animal products, gold, silver, gems, and other key minerals. Now, a lot of these countries from Latin America and Africa and West Asia have abundance of those. And let me pull up something for you guys while you're looking at that. And I'll go to the chat in a second, but I want to lay something down, okay? Let me pull up something here from CNN. All right. Before I go to the policy thing. Hold on. Let's see if I can pull it up. You haven't heard anybody talk about this. All right. So we're going to take this off the screen. To do it again. Let's see. Hold on one second. Share. Stop that screen right there. All right. Let me see now. Share this screen. I don't know why it's acting this way. All right, here we are. Boom. All right, there we are. Agree. All right. This is January 20th, 2026. Okay. Look at the headline here. Look at the headline. The world has entered a new era of water bankruptcy with irreversible consequences. You see that? You see that headline? The world has entered an era of global water bankruptcy with irreversible consequences, according to the United Nations report. Regions across the world are afflicted by severe water problems. Kabul may be on course to be the first modern city to run out of water. Mexico City is sinking at a rate of around 20 inches a year as the vast aquifer beneath the streets is overpumped. In the U.S. Southwest, whoa, what is the U.S. Southwest? That is almost the breadbasket of a continual battle over how to share the shrinking water of the drought-stricken Colorado River. The global situation is so severe that terms like water crisis and water stress fail to capture its magnitude, according to the report published Tuesday by the United Water. That we have entered a time of Western collapse because what they deemed as third world nations or second world nations, these nations have huge underground water supplies. Now, they just told you that the Southwest and also the Midwest also, that they forgot to put in there, is suffering from water shortages. So it is no coincidence that Greenland has been, they discovered fresh water supplies under Greenland. The huge water supplies in Venezuela. The underground water supplies in Haiti, right? In Syria, in Libya. Huh? All right? So let's go a little further. You guys bear with me. I told you we're gonna get it down today. We're gonna get some truth out today. Because I don't hear anyone else talking about this. Nobody. And I waited 4 or 5 days to see if anyone would even bring this up. Because it is so imperative that we address this, because you're looking at an economic collapse. You're looking at a currency collapse. You're looking at a societal collapse. And what would make that water? And water becomes a measurement of wealth. Isn't that what was in one of the what is it? With Denzel Washington, what was it? The book of Isaiah, I believe. The book of something. Wasn't water a precious commodity? And it looked like that they were living in an apocalypse. Yeah, wasn't it the same thing in Mad Max? Huh? Talk back to me. So now, let me go to something real quick. Let's see if I can find that real quick and put it to the screen. Because I'm trying to do a lot at one time. I'm trying to bring up a lot. Let's see. J.P. Morgan. No, I'm not looking for J.P. Morgan. I'm looking for... all right. Okay. So give me 1 second, everybody. All right. I'm going to bring this up on the screen, okay? So I'm showing you how that you can bring this stuff up. Look at the keywords up here. 1990 policy papers on the coming global water and resource wars, right? I put that in Google, right? So if I can do it, you can do it, right? So now let's look at what it says. All right. It says in the AI overview right here, where you have this diamond or star right here, it says in the early 1990s. So this is not something that crept up on us, because when we say the 90s, we say 2000s, the 210s, the 220s, and now we're in the mid 220s. So we're almost 40 years from when these policy papers were written, okay? So this did not just creep up on them. This is why they had invested so much in surveying, because they were trying to find out who had what, when, and where, so that they can loot it. So it says this. In the early 1990s, the conclusion of the Cold War led to a shift in security studies. See, they're telling you after the Cold War ended, they shifted to what? With policy papers increasingly focusing on environmental security and resource scarcity as drivers for future violent conflicts. Stop right there. What just happened in Venezuela? What is happening in Somalia? What is happening in Yemen? What are the Europeans trying to do in the Sahel? What is happening in Ukraine? What happened in Libya? What happened in Lebanon? What happened in Syria? Huh? Violent wars of conquest, right? The policy paper says and resource scarcity as drivers of future violent conflict. Let me highlight that part right there for you to see. So I hope you see that. Okay. Now it says key literature from this period predicted that water. So now, and then it says other resources, but it says water first. It didn't say oil. It didn't say gas. It didn't say rare earths. It didn't say gold and silver, even though all of those are drivers for these wars, because they're going to need all of them to submit themselves as powers and to keep their populations calm. But the first thing that it mentioned was this: key literature from this period. What period? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the Cold War ended. Key literature from this period predicted that water, and then it says, and other resources. So water was an emphasis, and other renewable resources, rather than ideology, would cause regional instability. Now, let's go to something real quick. Give me a second, okay? All right. Let's see. Meaning of, there we are right here. According to the dictionary, Google's dictionary, the word key, K-E-Y, is a noun, a small piece of shaped metal with incisions cut to fit the wards of a particular lock, which is inserted into a lock and turned to open or close it. Each of several buttons on a panel for operating a computer, typewriter, or telephone. An adjective of paramount or crucial importance. Okay? So we use the last one when concerning this. It says key literature or paramount literature from this period predicted that water and other renewable resources, rather than ideology, would cause regional instability. Now let's go further. Okay. Now I'm scrolling down. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. So when you Google this, you'll see key things here. So let me scroll down before reading a little bit more. Okay. I want you to see the where you can reference things is at right here, so that you'll see that I'm not making any of this up. Okay. You see that? All right. Now, let's go back up. It says key 1990s policy papers and studies on resource water wars. Thomas Homer Dixon's environmental scarcity research, early 90s. So they were talking about this in the early 90s, where it says Thomas Homer Dixon, leading a team at the University of Toronto, published influential research in the early to mid 1990s, culminating in articles like Environmental Scarcities and Violent Conflict, Evidence from Cases. International Security, 1994, arguing that renewable resource scarcities, especially is put on something to add emphasis to, right? You want to highlight that. Whatever comes after especially is highlighted because you use the word especially. It's like taking a highlighter and marking over the thing so people can pay specific attention to that, right? So he said, especially what? Fresh water, soil, and forests were already contributing to violent conflict in developing nations and would lead to subnational, persistent, and diffuse violence in the coming decades. We're 4 decades removed. You see that? I'm just talking to you. Now, let's go down. Falkenmark, 1990, on water scarcity. Malin Falkenmark work in 1990 highlighted the multiplied pressure on scarce water resources due to population growth, emphasizing the risk of conflict in arid regions, particularly in the Middle East. Now, do you see the theme here? Huh? They talk about other resources, right? But what is the main thing that they're talking about? Water scarcity, right? So, of course, you want the oil so that you can keep your currency going. But if your currency is going and you can't get water, you're still going to have problems, because water is the basis of life. Our bodies are comprised 3/4 of water, or 2/3 of water. You need water, not Powerade, not Gatorade. You need water. You understand? They had these things and they wrote about them, and now we're seeing the policies being put into play right now. That's why you have an overthrow of Maduro, because Maduro would not sign away the water. He wouldn't sign away the oil. He wouldn't sign away the mineral rights. And guess what else he wouldn't sign away? The vast forests in Venezuela. You know that? That's why they took away Jean Aristide from Haiti. And now they're going after what? Greenland? Because Greenland has what? Huge, untapped freshwater reserves. And it has rare earths. You hear them talk about rare earths. But even if America were to capture the rare earths, she can do little with them, because she does not have the streamlined refining capacity. It would take 20 years for her to get that online. And she does not have the financial wherewithal to do that, nor the time. But guess what she can hold hostage? The water. Because all she has to do is, you don't have to refine fresh water. Everybody missed that. Everybody. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I don't mean to be ignoring you or whatever. I just want you guys to understand what's actually going on, okay? I told you, when I read for understanding. I don't read for bragging. I don't read to say I read something. I read for understanding, because we don't all understand. And understanding is a hell of a thing. When you get an understanding of a thing, you grab it by its tail and you will never let it go, because you understand the nature of certain things. So now let's go to the next one. It says, Global Resources and International Conflict, 1990, edited by Arthur H. Westing. This work included significant contributions on fresh water as a strategic policy issue, fresh water as a factor in strategic policy action. Okay. Then we go down here. It says World Resources Institute, 1990. The World Resources Report 1990 to 91 described a new, more serious agenda of environmental concerns, noting that pressure on natural resources intensified daily in the developing world, with diversification and deforestation creating conflict scenarios. Starr 1991 on water wars. George Starr's 1991 foreign policy article, Water Wars, is credited with popularizing the concept that the Middle East's next major conflict would be over water. Key 1990s themes and trends, okay? Okay, I want you to look at that for a minute as I get me a bottle of water. See, I'm thorough in what I do. And guess what? I want you to understand something. I just did this before the show. Roughly about, I sat here at the desk, and my children or my wife can bear with. I sat right here, pull this stuff up, because I know what I'm talking about. I don't have to have 100 days to do this. I know what I'm talking about. So it says, the water war myth versus reality. While 1990s rhetoric frequently predicted water wars, Ismail Serageldin, 1995, predicted the wars of the next century will be about water. Researchers noted that no two countries have ever formally gone to war over water in recorded history, though transboundary disputes were common. What's going on with Pakistan and India? Pakistan is talking about reneging. India is talking about reneging and pulling out of the Indus Valley Water Treaty. to deprive Pakistan of its share of the water. Then China jumps in and says, hey, don't do that, because you wouldn't want anybody to do that to you. Because remember, we sit upstream. And if you cut Pakistan off, we cut you off, because your water comes from us. Do you understand? I don't think you guys understand how serious this is. Because all we've been fed is the oil, sanctions on oil, while they're sending excavation and demography, I think that's what it's called, teams to go and do surveys all over to try to find out where huge deposits of minerals and water are around the globe. So let's go here. It says, research is, it says, transboundary river conflicts. Policy papers often identified the Nile, Jordan, Euphrates, Tigris, and Ganges rivers as high-risk areas for interstate disputes in the 1990s. Resource management and security, the 1990s saw the emergence of the environmental security concept, where national security establishments began treating environmental degradation as a threat to national security. You see that? See that? What does Trump say he's about? Greenland is what? What did he say Greenland was? It was paramount to what? America's what? Talk to me. Talk to me. It was in the comments. What did he say Greenland was paramount to America's what? Just somebody put it in the chat before we go further. And when you put it in the chat, we'll go further. All right. Look at that. That's right. So shout out to M Sparks in the building. So listen. So what did Trump say? It was vital to America's what? What? National security, right? Shout out to non-delusional, Gold Mode 2427, Cool Crab 1010, yeah, Beer Break, shout out. Oh man, this thing is jumping so bad. I hate when it jumps like this because I miss too many people. So let's go further. See, I'm gonna give it to you like it is, raw. They want you. See, I keep telling you what America and the Western world does. They have this what I call this magic show. They are the magicians, and what the magicians do is a sleight of hand. When they are doing something, when they want you not to pay attention to where the trick is actually happening at, they distract your attention somewhere else, so that you can look over here, and by the time you look back, the trick is done, and they have already slighted you, and you're amazed because you're like, oh my God, how did that happen? That's because they distracted your attention from what was really going on. The sleight of hands, the three card Molly, all of that stuff. So it goes further and says this. The 1990s saw the emergence of the environmental security concept. Isn't that what Trump was talking about? Where national security establishments began treating environmental degradation as a threat to national security. We read from CNN that they said that the Southwest of America, which is part of the breadbasket, is under tremendous water strain, droughts everywhere, right? If there's no water, you can't grow your food, right? We have interstate wars between these states because they think that they should have a little bit more of the water in the reserves. That's what's going on right now. So what did Trump do? He goes to Venezuela. He says, I'm going to run Venezuela from now on. We're going to do their resources. And everybody thought he was just talking about the gold and the oil and the rare earths. Nobody thought about the water, the huge reserves. And then he turns his attention to his ally, Denmark, and wants Greenland. Because he said it is vital for America's national security. Why would it be vital? because America already has military bases there. So why would it be vital to transfer Greenland to American sovereignty so that America can have the pick of the lot of the water supplies and the resources and the fisheries? Resource wars. This is what happens when empire starts to implode upon itself and start consuming not only itself, but its allies alike. So it goes further and says, environmental refugees. Researchers argued that scarcity would lead to massive population movements. What are they talking about? Huh? Trump is saying that if we get Greenland, we're going to give everybody $1 million. Hell, why won't you give everybody in America $1 million? If you're that generous, you owe everybody in America $1 million. And how in the hell can you bring that about when you $39 trillion in debt, not including the off-books debt? Isn't it more of a national security threat to put money over there when you have a starving population, homelessness exploding, unaffordable health care, a destructive and degraded educational class and educational system, and a judicial system that is imploding from top down? What's more of a national security threat? But you can then supersede that by saying we need water. So guess what? We're going to take yours. We're going to take your water. So it says, researchers argued that scarcity would lead to massive population movements, creating environmental refugees that could trigger conflict, as seen in examples like Rwanda and in studies of the Sahel region. Well, who started the Rwandan conflict? It wasn't the Rwandans. This was egged on by who? The Europeans. On by who? The Europeans. Because they wanted to divide the populations to do what? To extract the resources at little to no cost. To hell with the life and the lives that were lost. This is the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And then it ends like this. These 1990s papers were foundational. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let's go here. All right. According to the dictionary, the word foundational is an adjective. It means denoting an underlying basis or principle. Fundamental. It means it is fundamental. Okay. So these 1990s papers were fundamental because it says foundational. So we can insert the word fundamental instead of foundational, shifting the focus from military to military conflict to the ways in which population growth, environmental damage, and resource mismanagement combine to create violent social crises. Are we not watching it? I'm asking. Huh? Am I lying? Look, Cool Crabs, I think they're going after, I got to put this up here, it's funny. I think they're going after Iran because Orange Jesus is having a bad week. And Felu says, the empire believes in might is right again. The colonizers are above the law. I'm going to tell you something, Felu, okay? They believe that, but that's not what's driving them. That's not what's driving them at this moment. Not might is right. It is because of time. I don't care what I'm talking to you guys about. I'm always on the issue of time. Remember what I tell you guys, that time is the most valuable commodity because once you've used it up, you can never get it back. So when you spend your time, what you do, make sure that you get an equal or greater return for the time spent. That's why it's called spending time. When you spend money, guess what you get? You get a product in return. So they're spending their last remaining times of empire trying to drag out empire by strong arming and robbing other nations of sovereignty, of resources, of wealth, of the brain. They're doing a brain drain so that they can try to keep the empire afloat just a little bit longer because the time is against them. And this is what is causing the irrational, unsound policy and moves of Trump and the administration of the West. Okay? That's what's really behind this. Let me go to something to show you what I'm talking about. Let's go to I'm going to put this let me take the policy thing off the screen real quick, okay? I'm going to remove that. See if I can get this off the thing real quick. Stop that screen. All right. I'm going to bring something up to you. We're going to go somewhere. Let's see. I'm going to show you how economics and everything play a part in this. All right. So up on the screen, see, we're doing this off the cuff. So let's go here. All right. The headline. All right. You see that headline right there? It says, what are they not telling us? Why has the U.S. Mint suddenly raised the price of 1 ounce silver coins to $100+ right? You see it, all right? You see what I'm talking about. $169, right? Listen to what it says right here. I haven't read this, but I thought it was interesting. So let's go here. We'll just read a little bit of it. It says, the U.S. Mint obviously expects the price of silver to keep rising. When I first learned that the U.S. Mint was selling 1 ounce silver coins for $169, I thought that it must be a mistake. So I went to the U.S. Mint's official website, and sure enough, the report that I had heard was accurate. Of course, the U.S. Mint always sells their coins at a premium, but this is ridiculous. Are they expecting the price of silver to blow way past the $100 mark in 2026? If so, that will cause enormous imbalances, listen to this, in the global financial system. There have been repeated attempts to suppress the price of silver in recent weeks, but they have all failed. A global scramble for physical silver is underway, and the paper games that were once so effective just aren't working anymore. So what is he saying? If the price of silver is going up, guess what's going down? The value of the dollar. The soundness of the American economy. The production in the American economy. The services in the American economy. This is what he's saying. So why would they price it if silver is at $95 or $94? Why would they price it at $169? And this was yesterday. They're trying to make a pretty penny on it so that they can then try to pay on something or fund something because they understand that the dollar is not what it used to be. You understand? So time is against them. They see this. This is why they're rushing with this mad policy. So let's go a little further into this. Let's just one or two more paragraphs up into this. Okay, let's see where this leads us. All right, give me 1 second. All right. It says last week, the U.S. Mint suspended sales of silver coins temporarily so that they could update the prices. It was prepared for the colossal price increases that were ultimately unveiled. The Mint temporarily suspended silver sales earlier this week to implement the price changes. Products started coming back online yesterday with the new pricing. The 2024 uncirculated silver eagle that retailed for $91 is now $169. The 2023 version also jumped to $169 from its previous $91 price point. They are free to charge whatever they want, and even at these exceedingly elevated prices, many people will gobble these coins up. But it is still difficult for me to believe what just happened. The following image comes directly from the official website of the U.S. Mint. So he's showing you this. I recently described the relentless rise of the price of silver as being unstoppable. And on Monday, gold and silver both surged to brand new record highs. Now, why is this happening? It says gold and silver prices climbed fresh peaks on Monday as investors flocked to safe haven assets and intensifying tensions after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to impose extra tariffs on European countries over the control of Greenland. So what's happening? He's cutting off his nose to spite his face. He's cutting off his ears to spite his eyes. He's poking out his eyes to spite his lips. He's cutting off his lips to spite his booty chin. That's what he's doing. The empire is going down, and they can't stop it. So, what better telltale sign of a currency collapse and an economic death spiral than for them? Because when I was buying silver was like $9. I think it was $9. I think the most it was like $18 or something. And within months, it is up to $100. What does that tell you? That tells you that something is not sound in the economy. Something is not sound with the currency. Something is not sound with the domestic and the foreign policies, which means that the American empire is no longer standing on a sound footing. You understand? Yo, what's up, Rob? What's up, my guy? What's up, non-delusional? Rashid, look up technocracy. That's the main plan. Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that. Non-delusional too about the intercontinental ballistic missile. My guy, Naeem 88 is in the building. Yeah. He said he never would have thought of that. So we're looking at the fall of America in real time. All right. Technocracy. Let me do something for one of the guys in the chat. Hold on 1 second. It says technocracy, the government or control of society or industry by an elite of technical experts. Absolutely. Boom. But here's the problem here. Here's the problem with technocracy. They can't control this. This is out of their control now. When your debt has become such, now I remember, and you guys who've been watching the show noticed when I had Gregory Manarino. As a matter of fact, Gregory Manarino will be on Tuesday of this week coming up. When we talked about the debt burden, and he was talking about the United States, the bond market, and has so much debt that it's past the quadrillions now. He said whatever the next number is past the quadrillions. That's what he says. That, you know what it is? It's bets on bets on bets. So we got debt after debt after debt after debt after debt. And the United States is sitting on at least 600. And here's the numbers. Look, 666 trillion. Isn't that something? Look at that number there. 666 trillion. That in Naeem 88's mind, he understands that. In you guys' mind, you have a different understanding. You think 666. But Naeem is thinking on another level, and he's talking about this symbolizes a collapse of society. That symbolizes a collapse of society with $38, $39 trillion in acknowledged debt and growing. And you have $1 trillion+ interest on that. Think about that. So the only way that the empire can continue to go is to continue to fleece the people, to continue to try to overthrow government so that they can control the resources, so that they can continue to survive another day. This is desperation. This is not planned. They are throwing any and everything that they can up against the wall to see if it'll stick. They are putting poop on ice cream cones with sprinkles on it and trying to tell the people this is a chocolate cone of ice cream. when everybody can smell that it's refuge? Because all of the signs tell us that that is just refuge on a cone with sprinkles. Their policies is nothing but refuge. America is in the economic and political sewers. I hope everybody's following me on this. All right. I just hope. Let's go to something on the Economic Collapse blog, because something caught my eye just a second ago when I was on this one. Let me go back 1 second. All right. So we go up. And here we are. I think this is where it's at, right here. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. See, slide. She can only cook the books for so long. Look what happened after suppressing the silver to gold ratio, or the gold to silver ratio, for all of these years. And now she can no longer stop that. It's out of their control. There's a greater power controlling this now. There's a greater power. And he has them in derision because they won't repent of their sin. So now all of these corrupt elite, they think that they have a chance to acquire the wealth, acquire the power. But what if your wealth is turned to rubble and there's no one listening to you because you no longer have the attraction, so you no longer have the power? You're going to sit in the dust, right? The dust of embarrassment, ridicule. These people are going to start hanging people, killing people, because when the masses wake up to this, man, it's going to be a moment unlike anything else. Listen, look at this headline right here. This came out yesterday, excuse me. And the other article came out day before yesterday. It says, empty stores everywhere. America's retail apocalypse is already the worst in history, and there are signs that it is getting even worse. Okay. Oh, and by the way, everybody that's watching, Patreon will be streaming this weekend. Okay. So look for that. Channel members, Patreon will be streaming this weekend. Okay. God willingly. Let me say God willingly, because I don't know what God has in store, but my intentions are that. Okay. Now, and I hope you guys enjoyed the articles that came out this week also. Some more will be dropping soon too. So listen to this. Did you know that more stores were closed in the United States last year than ever before? More than 8,000 stores were permanently shuttered in 2025, and it appears that 2026 will be even worse. U.S. consumers have very little discretionary income to spend these days. Now, if they have very little, then isn't that a spit in your face if you are a consumer and you are a so-called citizen of America, and Trump can do little to nothing for you, but he's offering Greenland citizens $1 million a person? Huh? Isn't that a spit in your face? He spat upon the people, but nobody looks at it like that. He's telling you to hell with you. I don't care nothing about you. I'm going to further my goals at the expense of everybody, because I want to keep empire going just a little bit longer. It says, U.S. consumers have very little discretionary income to spend these days, and empty stores litter the landscape. If you live in a relatively prosperous area in our K-shaped economy, there may be just a few empty stores where you live. But if you live in a depressed area of the country, you may be faced with constant reminders of our retail apocalypse, because there are abandoned stores virtually everywhere that you go. The wealthy are still spending lots of money at retailers, but things have gotten very tight for the rest of us. As a result, we are witnessing, listen to this, a tsunami of store closures that is unlike anything that has ever happened in the entire history of our nation. See, this is what I'm telling you. So now listen, I'm going to show you the knock-on effects of that, okay? Retail stores closing. That means they're no longer able to buy product from manufacturers, which means that now they no longer have the money to service their loans, right? And that also means that when they shutter, people are out of work. So the unemployment rate goes up, right? But also, as the businesses shutter, they no longer are able to service their debt to banks, which means that the banks are left with losses also, which means that now multiple banks will be insolvent and unstable, which means that they then too will go belly up, which means that these same banks that gave loans to truckers and freights and shipping can no longer do that. They can no longer buy the gas or loan the money for the trucking companies to buy the gas and the insurance for their trucks, which means that now we have a knock-on effect of collapse, which means that more businesses are going down, which means more loans are going bad, which means more people become unemployment, which means that the American economy is collapsing right before your eyes. I'm not an economist, but I can entertain them. I'm not a strategist, but I can entertain them. And I'm telling you now that America is in deep, deep, deep trouble. And I'm telling you that there is no way out because she refused to do what was incumbent upon her. She refused to do right by the people that she wronged. Don't you know when you do wrong by people, one of the signs of growth and mental maturity is to be able to acknowledge that you've done wrong and to make amends of that? Not just say, I'm sorry, but make amends of that. You can't go and commit a crime and go before the judge and say, I'm sorry, and think that's it. They order restitution, meaning that you not only have to say that, but you have to pay for that crime. America thinks that she's the exception to the rules. And this is what's bringing down the empire even faster because she has become inebriated on the thought of what she used to be and on the riches and the power and the influence that she used to have. And this is going to make revolution rise up in the midst of the people because the people will be wanting to know what's going on. We used to enjoy these freedoms. We used to have this. And we are seeing the makings of great revolution all across the country because America refused to do what's incumbent upon her, and that is to do justice by those whom she had deprived justice of. And this is making her fall that much harder and that much faster. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid, and I'd like to say to you all, from the bottom of my heart to the depth of my soul, thank you for giving me your time because you did not have to do that. You didn't have to do that. And I'm always led by the Spirit of God to try to tell you what's right because I don't want it on my soul to not be standing on post and not on my square of truth. I want to be right with God because ultimately that is the only way out of all of this madness. Do right by others, not because there's some material gain to be had or some accolades or pats on the back to be had. Do right by others because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, remember that God Almighty is watching you. As my late, great, and beautiful and wonderful mother would always say, God sits high on the throne of power, but he looks low at the actions of man. Ain't that the truth? So know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth and who loves the God of freedom, justice, and equality. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous. And happy pre-birthday to my wife. I love you all. Mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all. Like, subscribe, and share. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a